pick any fine day, and this is the early morning scene at the Ashton Court estate on the outskirts of Bristol.
But these are no ordinary days, and this is no ordinary year. For as I speak, thousands of people are making their way here to celebrate a special anniversary for the city's most uplifting annual event. I'm off to meet some of its exceptional heroes. Taxi! This year is the 25th anniversary of the Bristol Balloon Fiesta, and the plan today is to celebrate this fantastic event whilst airborne in this magnificent balloon. But actually, between you and me, I'm feeling a little bit wobbly at the moment because hot air ballooning and I have our own brief history. Take a look at this.
This was my very first flight 7 years ago.
We do have a tree coming right for us. In fact, we're very, very close to the tree.
Okay, through the tree.
We are, I don't believe it!
But that was nothing compared to the big one about to come. A couple of days later, while filming for a TV documentary, things were about to get much more dramatic. An emergency landing on hard ground left me with a compaction fracture in the neck. All but a broken neck. I could have spent the rest of my life in a wheelchair. As it was, I escaped with 2 weeks in hospital and 2 months in a surgical collar.
Oh, and it still hurts today. Never again, I said. But here's a man who might just persuade me otherwise. A very special pilot, Brian Jones.
Hello, Jill.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, thanks.
Now, you must think I'm completely mad. I'm feeling a bit wobbly about this. And you've been around the world in a hot air balloon.
Well, I think it's a bit sad, really, that one incident that you had, which is unfortunate, has put you off ballooning for the rest of your life. So I would like the opportunity to change that for you today, if I could.
And what are the conditions like?
Very good. I mean, it's a perfect morning.
I'm still not persuaded, I have to admit. But you're going up anyway, aren't you?
Yes, I'm flying anyway, and if you really don't want to come, then why don't you follow along in the car? And if you change your mind partway through the flight, then we'll come in and pick you up.
OK, we'll do that for now.
Truth to tell, I'd always had a longing to go up with that incredible mass ascent. As the biggest ballooning event in Europe, the Bristol Fiesta attracts pilots from all over the world. And 500,000 visitors from far and wide, drawn to gaze at a sight which, even after all these years, can still take your breath away. But for now, my feet are staying firmly on the ground. Well, on 4 wheels, actually, in the pursuit car. Brian's gone with the wind, and I'm going to try and keep up with the woman who every year organises the Balloon Fiesta.
It must take so much to organise.
It does indeed, but Jill, Brian's on his way, so I really think we need to make a move.
All right, so
if you don't mind.
We'll have a chat on the way. Yeah,
certainly.
Okay. He's actually disappearing really fast. OK, follow that balloon. Follow that balloon. OK.
It was way back in 1979 that the first Fiesta got off the ground. Like many a good idea, hatched over a pint by that veteran balloonist Don Cameron.
There had never been quite a balloon meet of that size in Bristol. Of course, the first ones were much smaller than they are today. Nothing was established and no one knew what to expect. In fact, a lot of people say, those first Fiestas were much better than the present day ones because it was a sort of cosier atmosphere.
And how many balloons were there at the first Fiestas?
Maybe only about 20 or so on the first ones. And of course, it's grown to the 150 that we have today.
Well, of course, it was in a different location. It was in the bowl next to the main house, of course, until it outgrew that space. And it was very much more of a balloonist event without quite so many public as we see nowadays. But it was essentially still the same enjoyable fiesta.
Among those who come back year after year, Brian Jones. Even after circling the world, he still finds a simple flight irresistible.
being up here on this wonderful morning with a fabulous view, and we're flying over one of the major cities of the country, and yet we have no traffic lights to stop at, we have no concerns about which direction we go and one-way systems, etc. And it's just enchanting when the sun is shining like this, and you get a perspective of the city which is truly beautiful. It really is magnificent down there. I think the Fiesta now is its 25th anniversary, and I started ballooning in 1985, and I think I've missed 2 since then. So yes, it's an important element of Bristol's heritage, I think.
How apprehensive do you get beforehand?
The only time I get nervous is on the first evening, and we've been on that site for a month, and all these people suddenly start to come down the hill onto the launch field and around the site to look at the night glow. And that's when I look up the hill and I think, gosh, what a lot of people, and we've put this all together, and we've got to look after them and entertain them and hope everybody has a good time.
There's no doubt about the stars of the show, the special shapes pioneered by Don Cameron back in 1976. A spectacular idea which has established Cameron's as the world's largest manufacturer of hot air balloons.
Of course, anyone going up in a balloon needs to have complete faith in the way it's constructed. So just how are they made? Well, if you thought sewing a pair of curtains was a bit of an effort, wait till you see what they have to deal with in here.
Ballooning obviously runs in the family. For the past decade, Hannah Cameron has worked with her father. She showed me one of their latest creations, the head of Vincent van Gogh.
We were asked to make the Van Gogh balloon for a company in Holland that was celebrating his 150th birthday in March this year. It was an incredibly difficult balloon to make, particularly because every brush stroke that appears on the 3D shape was lifted from the 2D portrait that we had a print from.
Wow, this looks a very busy area. What's going on here?
This is the cutting department. Every piece of fabric that you've seen in the factory starts off here with Michelle, and so you can see here's a small sample of the fabric we've got.
This is actually what hot air balloons are made out of?
Yes,
It looks like tissue paper.
it is incredibly thin, you're absolutely right, but also incredibly strong. Try and pull that apart.
I can't believe that. It actually gets stronger.
Yes, what happens is when you give it a really good pull, you've actually bunched up the fibres, which has in fact increased its strength.
We're sitting amongst reams and reams of material here, and believe it or not, this is just one balloon.
That's absolutely right.
Just how much material is there here?
There's probably about 5 or 6 kilometres of material in this balloon alone.
And how many people would it carry?
About 19 people.
Wow. Now, I have to admit, I've been looking at this stitching here, and it still looks to me as if it's the sort of stuff you do at home.
It does look pretty simple sort of stitching, but it's based on an industrial sewing machine. There's 4 rows of stitching where we encapsulate all the edges of the fabric and then sew over 4 rows of 10-pound breaking strength thread.
But presumably you can't inflate the balloon in here, so the first time it is inflated is the first time you see if all the bits are together right.
Certainly the first time you see most balloons is at the first test inflation.
This is a really dinky little basket.
This is a special basket that we've made especially for my dad, and in fact the whole balloon and his entire kit, the basket, the burner, the fan, everything fits inside his estate car.
Oh, that's fantastic. Now, these haven't changed much, have they? What are they made out of, the baskets?
The baskets are made out of a mixture of cane, which is very strong, and also willow, which is both strong but light and flexible.
It's amazing. You are actually sort of going up in the air in a picnic hamper, aren't you?
That's a lovely turn of phrase, and yes, I suppose we are.
From little picnic hamper to, I mean, this is just showing off now, isn't it?
Yes, this is a much bigger balloon, and in fact, it would probably carry, gosh, between well, depending on the size of the people, but about 12 to 19 people even.
So how much would it cost to have a balloon made here?
Well, to have a little balloon that carried about 3 or 4 people would cost about £14,000.
Come on, let's go. Good girl. Right. Come on now, in this way.
The International Balloon Fiesta is unquestionably the biggest event in Bristol's calendar.
Morning. Good morning.
Susan Tanner has been the director for 10 years. It's a massive operation just keeping track of it all.
I'm a terrible list person, I'm afraid. The girls always laugh at me because every morning I come in with lists of what I've thought of overnight, of all the things that we've got to book, and the costings, all the signs, the forklift trucks, the furniture, the propane, the helicopter, insurance, make sure the police are booked, champagne for the press. I can't do this on my own, there's just no way. I have to have a brilliant team. Right. You've got all the phone books, girls. I'll just quickly go through them. So yesterday's bits and pieces. All year round I have one person who works with me, which is Sarah, and then I have a team that come on nearer to the event, and we also have volunteers who come and help as well. 3 weeks before the event we move the whole office to site. So I book porter cabins and some loos, a kitchen, and in a morning we move everything, set it all up and be up and running by the afternoon. Pull over here so we can have a quick look at the map and see exactly which direction we're going to be going in next.
Back with the chase. We were just managing to keep up. How did they manage to track Brian around the world?
Do you know, there are some people who would consider circumnavigating the world as, well, a piece of cake really compared with their idea of fun. Yes, there really are people out there mad enough to hurl themselves out of hot air balloons, and that includes TV reporters. We'll tell you more about that in just a couple of minutes.
Today we're celebrating an aerial milestone, the start of the 25th Bristol International Balloon Fiesta. Now the balloons might be the star of the show, but some people will do anything to get in on the act. What goes down must come up. Over the years, the stuntmen have had a field day. You name it, they've done it. Suspended from, or even standing on, a balloon. And all in the cause of getting a good story, this intrepid reporter thought he'd give it a go.
At the moment we are about 7,500 feet. Another 2,500 feet left, and we shall be flinging ourselves over the side.
So basically, as soon as we go, arms forward, big thumbs up, smile for the camera.
Oh, I think there's a smile optional. We're all going to die!
Hold fire, guys. Where you are.
God, this is so unnatural. There we go.
Okay, keep your head back. Ready, set, go.
Bristol's connection with hot air balloons dates back to the 18th century, but it really took off in 1970, all thanks to the one man whose name will be forever linked with the story of modern ballooning.
It all started here in the basement of this family home in Cotton when a young Scottish engineer turned his hobby into a business.
Yes, I did every job in the company except sewing. So I cut out all the fabric and did the designs and did the flight testing, everything. So the whole company was one lady sewing machinist and myself.
One of my earliest memories is loads of balloon fabric around, and in fact even in my bedroom, and Dad working on the kitchen table, and burners being made in the garden, and all sorts of things really.
In the end it grew so big that we moved along to the church hall in Cottam.
In those days, they were making about 4 balloons a month. As the sport took off, so did the business. And in 1983, they moved to a disused printing works in Bedminster. Now they turn out almost 1 balloon a day.
So what's the future for Camerons then?
Oh gosh, $6 million question. Well, I think certainly the near future is to jolly well get on and get all this stuff ready for the Fiesta. But certainly the future, I think, well, we're certainly not going to let you retire, if that's what you think.
I certainly didn't expect ballooning to become a worldwide thing. There's a beauty to it. You're sort of taking part in a magic without any power or sense of force. You're just floating off the ground. It's not like aeroplanes. Aeroplanes, you're dashing through the air, but balloons are just floating along. It's curious that it is 220 years old, and yet there's still so much new to do.
And the technology doesn't come much newer than this. The first balloon to make it non-stop around the world was one of Cameron's, flown by Bertrand Piccard and Brian Jones.
Well, we were in an incredibly high-tech balloon, and we'd improved it every attempt that we'd made, and Camerons did the most extraordinary job on producing this balloon that flew for 3 weeks non-stop.
It's very exciting, and I just felt Brian would probably do it because he's very, very calm and he's very organised, and he just was very unassuming, and it worked.
There have been some 20 attempts to fly the balloon around the world when we took off, and some of them had ended in disaster. No fatalities, I'm pleased to say. So it was extremely nerve-wracking, and most of the problems that happen are on takeoff with a balloon of that size. And for us it was particularly dangerous because we were taking off in the middle of the Alps, and we had a lot of fuel on board, and if something had gone wrong, which necessitated us landing soon after takeoff, it could have been potentially disastrous. The moment on the flight that I knew that we were going to make it was just extraordinary, and it was intensely sort of personal because Bertrand was sound asleep, and we really didn't think we were going to make it across the Atlantic, and I was doing some frantic calculations to see whereabouts in the Atlantic we would probably go in. And over the period of 2 or 3 hours, the speed I was going to say picked up, but in fact it tripled. It was just extraordinary. And I remember so clearly, and I pushed these calculations away, and I thought, I have no idea who's flying this balloon, but please carry on because you're doing a great job. It just felt destined.
Do you know, seeing him up there actually almost makes me feel tempted.
Well, Jill, if you're going to fly with anybody, I think you should fly with Brian, and I hope that what you've seen today is encourage you to go flying with him.
As the date for the Fiesta approaches, things really start to hot up. There are a lot of people involved.
Welcome everybody. We do a lot of operational planning meetings, the police, the health and safety, the fire brigade, the councils. When they bring their ideas to the table, we look at last year's event and then plan for the next year's.
This year, as you obviously all know, it's our 25th anniversary. We have come up with the very original theme of silver. We're looking at doing silver bunting and streamers from all the balloons. Actually, when they fly out, that they have these great big silver streamers that come down. They will bring those in before landing, and they won't be flammable.
It is quite daunting, really, because they can be quite tough on you, because if they say jump, it's not, why, it's how high. But they're there to help me and support me, and if you go in with that sort of attitude, everybody's very, very helpful. But you do have to know your stuff. They like to know that you're in control and confident.
If we move on to concert update. Alistair, could you just update everybody on the concert?
Well, just to run through it quickly, where it says existing road, that's the one that runs up to that Church Lodge, physically.
We have to do a lot of traffic management with the city councils, and of course I'm working with Bristol City Council and also North Somerset, so half my roads are in North Somerset and the other half are with Bristol, so we have to deal with both councils to make sure that the plans work. For any other. Ashton Court is a site of special scientific interest and SSI site, so we have to put in wet weather plans to make sure that we don't churn up the site, that we can get the traders on and off easily, and we preserve it.
2001 was a particularly interesting year, the foot and mouth year, and on top of that, it was such a difficult year for the balloonists to fly that year, and we managed to get a few up for the event, but then it rained and rained and rained, and the site was so muddy, and everybody came to support us, but it was so wet. And that was probably the year that I thought a change of career to open perhaps a poodle parlour would perhaps be a good idea, but no, you come back and you do another one and you plan it, and some of the good times are when you see that night glow light up and all those balloons light up and you hear everybody cheering. I'm sure you can feel Ashton Court move actually, everyone's jumping up and down, cameras going off and light sticks waving, and the atmosphere is just magical, and that's always such a big high, seeing the night glow.
The whole atmosphere of the fiesta is extraordinary in that the people get up at all sorts of crazy times of the morning to come and watch balloons, and it's just a lovely sight, so many magnificent balloons in the air over Bristol. I'm looking ahead for a sensible landing place. So we've got horses down here, so I want to avoid them. I'm going to put it down reasonably hard because I need to stop before that tree, okay? Two's off, and out she comes.
Wow, impressive landing there. How was it?
It was great. It was a gorgeous morning.
Yeah, I don't think your friend thought much of it though. Rubbish.
Well, having seen that extraordinary flight that we've just done, have we convinced you that you really ought to have another go?
Do you know, I think I will. I said I'd never do this again, but 7 years later... Oh. I do actually feel quite ill. Oh no.
Yes, I know what you're thinking. She's still tied to the ground.
Okay, well, it's a start, isn't it? And it's the most fantastic place to see the fiesta from this year. Happy 25th anniversary! Happy 25th anniversary, yes. Okay, I want to come down now.